this organization because of these developments. How do you see his decision? I'm saying he jumped, he wasn't pushed. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think he jumped, but I think it was a combination. Well, we don't know. If he received a package, then he was pushed. So it's a combination of being jumped and pushed.
It would have been too good to refuse?
Yeah, yes. So, but I think that, okay, my opinion is that it was a combination of jumping and pushing. So he probably went and said, you know, for this thing to work and for the investigation, for it to be acceptable and for it to be fair, then I should not be supervising that. And as CEO, that's really, I'm ultimately responsible. So I can see him going to somebody and saying, well, so I'm going to leave. And a conversation would have continued and he would have got some kind of support to leave. What is interesting about his departure is that his successor is the same age. So I don't understand that, because an organization who your CEO is leaving, you can't, your succession is so badly designed that you can't find a person who's at least 5 years younger than the one who's leaving. So you put someone in the position who's the exact age.
Yeah, because you believe that it lends one to think that maybe that's just a stopgap measure while they look for...
A company like Massey, if there is a proper succession plan, then I don't accept that that's just a stopgap measure. It's either that or their succession planning is just not done. So then they have some work to do with succession planning.
And that's a window into the real issue as we probably see it, precisely because of that. And so it allows for people like yourselves and others to look at what is happening and see in an organization such as that. And when you talk about Neil Massey, you're talking about the man who they call the Bull Moose, who has a reputation for having taken it up and brought it along to the point where by the time he retired, it was this at least in the public imagination, this massive organization.
Yeah. Massey is a fantastic organization. When you think of all that they've done and you think of their value, it's a fantastic organization. But Massey, to me, simply reflects our society where organizations have taken an attitude of command and control. They have not taken an attitude of collaboration, an attitude of inclusion that says, okay, this is what the CEO and this is what the executive, this is what the C-suite thinks, but what else is there that we can add? And unless we start to be transparent with all the things we are doing, our country will not thrive. Massey is doing extremely well, but Massey is a company that I have problems with. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I drive a Massey car. 3 months now I'm trying to get a part and I can't get it. And I go in and the guy says, we have a little foreign exchange problem. I say, listen, try another word. You have a foreign exchange problem? How you could be paying this management people in Miami some millions of dollars and you can't bring in the parts? Because in today's world, with the kind of technology that you have, you know exactly how many cars you've sold. You know when they're likely to need replacement of different things. So why do I have to wait 3 months to get a part? I'm saying Massey, but this is exactly what happened when I owned a car from Sterling. You know, and nobody, no system.
Are you talking high-end stuff here, man?
Of course, don't do that.
From Massey, you were Sterling. I mean, that's good.
But that's not the point.
Go ahead.
The point is we do not have systems and processes that ensure that when people buy a car, for instance, that car, you can get the part. You can get it repaired. So you have to just put your car aside, eh?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, I mean, that is way above the grade that I found when I went a couple of weeks ago, or was it a couple of months, to rent a car for a couple of days because my car was down. Went to Massey, and they told me I had to get somebody to sort of give them some kind of note of my good character, and so I had to get somebody who was a reference point, you know, to rent the car, and they don't rent the car on a day-by-day basis. You have to put in something from
you know, Andy, what we are talking about is the extent to which our systems and processes are not in tune with what the needs of our citizens are. And that sounds as if, oh God, what is she talking about? But there must be something that ensures that you can get the part, that you can go to Massey and they tell you now you have to go for a reference. Behave. I can go to any country, and as long as I present my driver's permit, I can rent a car.
You walk into the airport and there's a place where you can go and rent a car and you get in and you go about your business. I've done it, you know, in
but
Texas.
Now
and
everybody wants a reference, and now it's 2 reference points. Come on, give me a break. You know, so we have to redesign our society.
All right, and speaking of that, in one of the pieces coming out of the Parisot Potter issue, Noble Philip in one of his articles talked about, he was making a point about, he said there's a difference between corporate image and corporate reality. And you sort of touched it in some of the things you're talking about there. And you're saying, well, from what I got from it, is that there's a whole rebuild which has to take place. But in other cases, that is it, I would say, related to us significantly, this question about constructing a corporate image that doesn't necessarily connect with your corporate reality. And you're talking about PR and communications and so on.
Andy, I can talk to you for hours about that, you know, but I won't do that. I won't talk for hours. You'll put me out. Anyway, but the question is there a difference between the corporate image and the corporate reality? And that is clear that there is. Historically, when I first entered the PR and the corporate communications world, you started off with a product that was sound, a product that was acceptable. And then you developed the branding around it. And you spoke about the branding and so on. So that the branding and the product had some kind of connection. In today's world, we're starting off with the branding, and the product oftentimes is not at one or at the same quality and the same level as the branding. Neil Massey has done a fantastic job in rebranding from Neil and Massey to Massey. Totally, you can't complain about that. However, whenever I have gone to their supermarkets, I ask myself, well, where am I? Because the branding and what you're promising me in the branding is not being reflected in the consumer interface that I'm getting with when I go into any of your organizations.
Give an example of that.
An example of that, I'll give you an example. Massey had this plastics thing. Remember when everybody get in a plastic bag and so on?
Yes.
But if you buy meat in a Massey store and you go to the counter to check out, they put the meat that is in a plastic bag in another plastic bag to give to you because the cashiers don't want their hands to get wet. So, is it that they understood what this thing about plastics, that they understood what was the thinking behind it? And I don't think they understood it. I'll give you a second example. I thought Massey did a fantastic job with saying to people, if you have your plastic bottles and so on that you want to dispose of, you can dispose of it in our stores. Then they just ran away from that. How do you do that? On the one hand, you're talking about we live in an island and we have to be careful with the use of plastics and we must, you know, have the plastic separate and so on. And people buy into it. I used to see people, carrying plastic bottles and so on, and then you just disappear.
Because there's a whole corporate imaging thing around that, and some of the people, at least the last time I saw him in person was at a CARICOM meeting in Suriname 2 years ago. And a couple of the people around him at that meeting, they may have come for a discussion precisely on that, were people from the, what is it called, the Beverage Alcohol Alliance or something like that. Yeah. So my sense was that, you know, there was some activity taking place regarding that. But I'm going to get to where the organization is now. So Mr. Warner up and left, and then Mr. O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien again was living in a position where he was responsible for what they call global
Yeah.
marketing and all of that. So that's one too many of heavy blows to take at the same time. Where does that come?
I think that that gives the organization an opportunity to redefine itself and be clear on what its vision is and ensure that its employees are part of that vision and part of that understanding, so that this issue of your corporate image and your internal consumer, your internal employee issues, that there's some connection there. So I think they have an opportunity, but I would like to just throw out that whoever is the ultimate leader in this organization need to go too. So one more person has to go.
You mean who will emerge as the ultimate leader?
No. This has to go to the board.
Yeah,
I think the chairman of the board has to go.
I see what you mean. Yeah. There has to be a kind of start from scratch, or
I think so.
A whole remake.
Yeah.
So there have to be a number of what you call those sessions where you sit for a while and think through where we are and where we need to be going.
They need to do strategic planning sessions, because without strategy, you won't get anywhere. You know, and Peter Drucker talks about it, strategy eats culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Yes, that is true. However, we can transform the culture. And an organization like Massey has the potential to transform not only the culture of their organizations, but it will impact the country. And that is something that I have been talking about for years, that transforming Trinidad and Tobago is not just about one organization. It's not just about the government. We all have to become committed and change our strategy and move from strategy to action. And if we move from strategy to action, we're going to begin to see some transformation. But it has to start somewhere.
Yeah, and where would you advocate that it start?
Well, in terms of Massey?
Yeah.
In terms of Massey, I think
the makeover.
The makeover, I think they have to be very transparent about Angelique Pariseau-Potter's departure, because she resigned, but there's supposed to be an inquiry going on. So they need to publicize the results of that, so that people like me in the public who read these things and interested in these things, we understand it. And they also have to tell us what were some of their key learnings. And if that is presented, then that can impact the rest of the country. Because what we all are looking for, I think we're desperate. We're looking for, what can we do to transform Trinidad and Tobago? Trinidad and Tobago is a beautiful place with lots of potential. But command and control continues to have us in a state in which people have lost their voices. People are not saying anything. Anything you ask people to tell you, yes. And we know that's not what they mean. Come on.
Yeah, because you said that, so we are a beautiful country, and I'm happy that people like yourself saying that, because a lot of times sometimes we get challenged when we say that to people, because people look at what is happening in the front pages of the papers, at the top of the newscasts all the time, in a weekend now, there's hardly a weekend going by where there aren't 5 or 6 murders in one go and them kinds of things. And some of us argue with others about how these things could be happening, and we're still talking about how nice we are, how paradisic we are.
I hear that, and I'm afraid too. There are things I don't do anymore, but the transformation of our country, I don't think is as challenging as we say it is. So, for example, the guns that are on the street come in somehow, and we need to find a way to prevent them from coming in. Under Patrick Manning, there was that intention around the borders and what could be done around the borders. But there's something that happens in our country. Once one political party departs, then whatever they were doing, we just ignore it and we start all over again. And if you can just, I know we're talking Massey, but...
No, but because we got there because what is happening there, what has happened there is symptomatic of what is happening on a larger scale. So
yeah. I have a friend, a Barbadian friend, who she teases me all the time. She says, here's the difference between Barbados and Trinidad. In Barbados, when we have a change of political parties, we regard it as a relay. So we hand the baton from one party to the other. And the projects and all of that, we generally continue them. when you all have elections in Trinidad and Tobago, you all start over the race. Now that to me is such it's an excellent analysis of the way we are. We do not see that, okay, things were happening. We spend millions and millions of dollars on schools. There are schools in Pinal that have been just abandoned. We spend those millions of dollars. A new party, forget that. And we go on to something else. You can't do that. Because we are all Trinidadians. We all live here. So you can't stop paving the road because the political parties have changed.
To an extent, you know, I mean, it's an overbeaten term that one of the things that characterizes us and defines the way we do things is that there is this particular, I would say, bedeviling, sort of ethnic, whatever you want to call it, on top of the two major parties, and however they want to say that, well, we are for everybody and so on, in the public imagination, which is different from say, you know, I mean, fundamentally different from, let's say, a Barbados or a Grenada or even a St. Lucia and so on. There is almost no difference when you look at who is the Prime Minister when governments change, who are the leading figures. But in some cases, I think people would say, well, that is probably our curse.
It's our curse and it's our blessing. The mixed population is growing so that eventually that will not be a problem.
Yeah. Douglarization will deliver us. So.
I don't want to say mixing. Exactly. Yeah, I don't want to say douglarization because that is too specific.
Yeah.
But the mixed population is growing, and that is one of the things that will save us. What could make that happen quicker is if we get leaders who move away from the race-based discussions and feelings.
They have to depend on the majority in cases inside the movement to do things. Let's come back. I think we have a couple of minutes left to talk about what would you recommend, what would you like to see happening with this makeover that appears to be imperative on the people at Massey?
I would like to see a different board at Massey with more women on it, because when women make decisions, they make it from an entirely culturally and experientially different perspective than from when men make decisions. And most of the board, it comprises men. So I would like to see a transformation of Massey in which there are more women in the leadership. And the second thing I would like to see is the report on that Paris Potter issue and the 13-page document that you submitted. We need to be transparent with that. And one of the reasons we need to be transparent is that taxpayers are stakeholders, are shareholders in Massey. So they owe it to the taxpayer to be able to give us some truth. Let's see what's happening.
All right, well, let's see what's happening. And we will continue to follow it as that is necessary. This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks to Denise Hemming. Thanks to you for watching. We'll see you next time.
And this is remains the most.
Yeah?
WESN.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. Before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail?
You've got to invest in the institutions that you've established to carry out those sorts of core functions.
We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands.
We have available a number of films that are worth showing.
So it was day one when the French Revolution started to develop the concept of universal human rights.
What happened this time is unprecedented. It's one of the largest terrorist attacks in history.
Let's welcome Carl to the program. Carl is over there next in stuff. Hello, Carl.
Silky anteater or pygmy anteater, and we have two of the three species of anteaters right here.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show
have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
Because vision doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this,